Shalom, Erev Tov. Last week or last time, we focused on some of the more philosophical elements to the holiday of Pesach, what it's about, what the names are, what is going on during the holiday. And this week, we're going to be much more practical. I'm going to try to go through the laws that a Jew performs leading up to the Pesach Seder, and perhaps during the Seder as well. Um, Pesach is a very important Seder, holiday in terms of mitzvot, and it's very important to focus on them. And certainly, most of the preparation for the holiday stems from the prohibition of chametz, right? We discussed this already, that in terms of chametz and matzah, so it's a very nice mitzvah to eat matzah, but if you eat chametz on Pesach, it's the worst sin and one of the worst sins in Judaism. So you have a weird situation where you have the matzah, which is the ideal of what we're talking about, and seemingly chametz is just to remove the chametz in order that you should have the matzah, but the Torah is very, very strict about it. Because the Torah is so strict about it, then throughout history, we've been double and triple strict. Now, Judaism is not a religion that is asking from us to always be strict. That's not what we're supposed to try to follow. We're supposed to be balanced. Sometimes it's valuable to make a fence around what you're doing and caution yourself and prepare, and be a little more strict, certainly when it comes to biblical law. And sometimes you can be lenient, depending on the custom, on the nature of it and what it's about. People who search for, in Hebrew, it's called a chumrah. Okay, people who search for chumras are not leading what I believe is an ideal Jewish life. So to have to deny yourself over and over again, I would not consider that ideal. Alternatively, or conversely, people who search for kulas, for lenient positions all the time, and won't ask their rabbi a question because they know that their rabbi is going to give an answer that is strict, and only ask the question to a rabbi who they know that they're going to get a lenient position. I don't think that that's ideal Judaism either. You're supposed to follow something in the middle. Maimonides called it the golden mean in terms of your values, and I think in terms of halacha, it should be the same. There are certain things that I do that are strict. I do it because my grandfather did it or my rabbi did it. I don't necessarily, live a strict lifestyle completely. But I don't leave a lenient one. There should be something in the middle. Then comes Pesach, and in Pesach, all bets are off. But by which I mean we generally are try to be strict for almost everything. Okay, so Dafka for Pesach, we need to take the more strict approach. And when we're talking about Pesach, obviously we're talking about the chametz. For this reason, we have discussions on what the chametz is. Normally, in general, in halacha, there's a rule called something that's batel. What does batel mean? It means that if you have a chicken soup and a spoonful of milk fell into the chicken soup, we say that the chicken soup is perfectly edible. It's just fine because there's so much soup that it kind of cancels out the milk that falls into it. Right? That's a rule in the laws of kashrut, and it relates to a lot of different areas. And we have a rule called 60-1. If there's 60 times the amount that is the opposite, then we say it's perfectly fine. You can eat it. Okay, and if that's with liquid. With dry, it's even more lenient, saying that as long as you have a majority, if you have 2/3, you're able to eat it. So So that's with regard to the laws of kosher. But on Pesach, we do not say the law of bittul applies. On Pesach, the chametz is called a davar sheyesh lo matirin, which means that in a week from now, the chametz is going to be mutter, it's going to be permitted. Therefore, we're not going to say that it is something that we can be lenient on right now, because there's a lot of non-chametz that's canceling it out. So we don't cancel things out on Pesach, and that's an important thing to consider when we're learning the laws of chametz, of what's considered chametz, of what we do when we find chametz. Okay, we don't cancel it out; we kind of leave it there. What is chametz? So I think we discussed this a little bit. We know that if it can't fulfill the mitzvah of matzah, then it's not chametz. You hear? In other words, chametz is flour and water, and matzah is flour and water. And the only difference between chametz and matzah is time. And Pesach is a very, very important holiday of time consciousness. Be conscious, be careful about your time, because if you go over it, if you don't take it seriously, if you're not conscientious, then it will become chametz, it will fester, it will become something that is unacceptable on Pesach. So there's really very, very little difference, or very, very small difference between chametz and matzah. And we have grains that are, when flour and water mix, if you leave it, the process of fermentation begins and it starts to become chametz. Okay, it takes a while. It takes at least 18 minutes for that process to begin. All right, 18 minutes, that's it. So if you have flour, you put it in water, you don't do anything for 18 minutes, you've created chametz. However, if you have flour and you put it in water and you mix the flour and water, the dough, if you mix it for 7 days straight, it's never going to be chametz. As long as it's moving, it is not going to be, it doesn't have the power to be chametz. The moment you set it down, you start counting. And therefore, when we're making matzah, we're very, very strict. We are careful to always move the dough around. We're careful that the whole process should be very, very quick. And we're careful to make sure that we take it out in time. So this relates to the 5 grains. The 5 grains are wheat, spelt, rye, oats, and barley. Wheat, spelt, rye, oats, and barley. Rice is not, there's one position in the Talmud that says rice is considered chametz, or rice is considered matzah, okay? Everyone else rejects it, and therefore, this is the halacha. Rice is not considered chametz. We'll discuss the fact that there's something called kitniot, but rice is not considered chametz. Buckwheat and soy and hummus and all these other types of flour, for 30 years ago, there was no other type of flour. Today, because of gluten, because of all these things, there are 20 different types of flours that aren't from the 5 grains. Those are permitted on Pesach from the Bible, and some of them are permitted from the rabbis as well. It just depends on if it fits into the category of kitniot, which we will discuss. Chametz must be edible. If it is inedible, it is not chametz. Who determines what's edible and what's inedible? Okay, this is a very, very important law, especially relating to medicine. Okay, when we take medicine, if the regular medicine, the pills have a bad taste, that's inedible. That's not something that you would normally eat, and if a dog would taste it, it would spit it out. The dog would not eat certain soiled or certain rotted or certain things. The rabbis say that a dog is our good test. He's the barometer. If the dog won't eat it, it's permitted. If the dog will still eat it, so then even though you might not be comfortable with it and thinking that it's food, nevertheless, it is considered food. The general rule about medicines are as follows. When they have a sugar coating that tastes good, the pills I'm referring to, then they need to be kosher for Pesach. Okay, because once they have a coating, then they are considered food, and once they're considered food, then you have to check what the ingredients are. But if they have no coating, and if it's just crushed compound that is put together, they're permitted on Pesach. So you can take pills that have no taste on Pesach. That's only with regard to pills. But there's liquids and there's lozenges and there's mints and there's there's a million different things. Now, if you're in America, it's very easy. It's very, very easy because everything has a sign. So, there are millions of products. Okay, but if you're in Europe, so you cannot rely on looking at ingredients alone. As I said, the chief rabbi of Poland puts out a list of what is acceptable for Jews in Poland. I imagine the chief rabbi of the France has a list, and the rabbinate of Bulgaria has a list. And every country needs to come up with this list, and you're supposed to follow that list of what it has. Syrups, chewable pills. You have to check to see that there is no chametz before you go. And so, as I said, in America, it's easy. You would say kosher for Passover. Outside of America, you'd have to go and check. Now, if you are unsure, let's say you have a chewable pill for your kid, okay? Because your kid is not feeling well, that's why they're taking the pill, okay? So then it already allows you to be in a certain category. However, because it's Pesach, so then we have to be super strict. What Rabbi Melamed says is that if you have, and what Rabbi David Borowski, I believe, has written, I think I'm using his laws about it, that if you have these chewable pills or syrups that do have a taste, you have to check the ingredient. And you don't have the OU to tell you what to do. You have to check the ingredients to see that there's no chametz. Now, if you clearly can see that from these ingredients there's no chametz, you're allowed to feed them to your children. You're allowed to engage. However, if you have a doubt, you're unsure, then you have to be strict, and you can't use it on Pesach. However, if you have a doubt about the neutral or bad tasting medicine, you don't have to worry. So here's the deal. There's something called a doubt, a safek in Hebrew. And if you have a safek about things that have no taste, so then you can nevertheless, because you read the ingredients, then nevertheless you can use them. However, if you have a safek about things that with taste, you should not use them. With regard to cosmetics, you have to think about two different categories. Okay, there are certain cosmetics that are absorbed into the skin. Now, if you absorb it into your skin, it's as if, according to the Talmud, on some level, you're eating it, you're ingesting it, let's say. Okay, so some rabbis were concerned that it's a form of eating, and they were strict that no lotions, no inks, no creams, shampoos, ointments, and stick deodorants should be used unless it's kosher for Pesach. However, a major group of the rabbis believe that even if these products do have some traces of chametz, they are certainly inedible to a dog, and therefore all are permitted. So here's another case where people are strict, and certainly those who are tavo alehem bracha, the blessing can be on them, because it and Pesach, it's better to be strict. But if you can't be strict because you're in a place that you can't find these things, so you can use your common sense. As I said, some are strict, but you can be lenient if they have minor traces. For example, I don't know, shampoo sometimes has a small amount of some kind of grain. It's for your hair, and you obviously it's better not to use it, but if you have to use it, so use it. It's definitely not considered chametz that's edible. Rabbi David Brovsky writes that many don't use liquid deodorants, hairsprays, perfumes, colognes, and shaving lotions that contain denatured alcohol. Okay. It appears in the ingredients as alcohol or special denatured SDA. This is a concern. There's certain alcohols in colognes are permitted, and certain alcohols there is a concern that alcohol we know is could have malt, could have grains, could have some kind of chametz in it, and therefore people are strict. There's debate about mouthwash, toothpaste, lipsticks. Rabbi Brovsky says some people refrain from using them as well. Our general custom is to buy a new tube of toothpaste and a new toothbrush for Pesach. That's a general custom of being strict for the holiday. These are, as I said, these are more nuanced laws because you're not actually eating them, but nevertheless, it is something that is something to be considered. Okay, so therefore, as I said, there are lists, things that you're ingesting, you have to be more strict, things that you're applying, there's a debate, there's probably room to be lenient if you need to. There is a good reason to be strict when you can, because it's Pesach, and that's where we hold about the different definitions of chametz. In terms of the real definitions of chametz, Gosh has a question.
What about hand disinfectants now during the Corona time?
What about what in Corona times?
The hand disinfectants that you use for food alcohol.
Good question. The hand sanitizers is a whole bunch of alcohol, right? I assume that in Corona time, you know what? I'm not going to answer. I'm going to text you. I'll look into it. I was going to assume that it would be permitted, certainly because of the concern for safety and the best way to cleanse. But before I do that, with Pesach and the laws of chametz being so strict, I'm going to answer your question soon. Okay. Needless to say that products that are questionable, once again, in America and Israel and in London, I guess, and maybe Australia and South Africa, major cities, not a problem. There's a list, there are products, and you can go. In Poland, in Krakow, you have to go to one store. There's not much there. And then you have to use a list to figure out what's acceptable. Rabbi Shidrich will have on the list, all types of vegetables are permitted. All wines have to have a hechsher. All this has to have that. All this has to have that. You should not mess around with these types of foods in preparing for your Pesach. There's a big discussion about milk, and there's a discussion about water. The rabbis who wanted to be strict found very creative reasons to say that it's not acceptable. And eggs. In the end, there's a place to be lenient. Ideally, you should buy your eggs before the holiday, not during the holiday. and same with milk. Let's talk about kitniot, okay? Because Jews generally take their traditions seriously, their customs, their minhagim, and because it's transferred from one generation to the next, then add to that the severity of the laws of Pesach, and you get the custom of, in Ashkenaz, of not eating kitniot. Why not? Nowadays everything is in a bag. 100 years ago, nothing was in a bag. That's why the world was in a less precarious state than it is now, because we're putting everything in that's bad for the environment. Everything, you still go to the markets, you'll see just big barrels of spices, and you might have the flour next to the buckwheat, next to the corn flour, next to this, next to that. And there was a concern for whatever reason, and I said either it has to do with people were mixed with it, or it actually was sold at the same place, or whatever the reasons that it originated in France and spread to Germany and Poland and Russia. The custom was to refrain from eating kitniot. Now, we won't define kitniot as just legumes or kitniot as just as nuts, because it has a wide spectrum. Kitniot is corn, it's rice, it's lentils, peas, millet, buckwheat, chickpeas, mustard, beans, and seeds. Okay, that's a whole bunch of the kitniot. Now, this was a custom that became it became a law. The custom became a law, or a takana, to not eat these things on Pesach for fear that it could get mixed up with chametz. In the Sephardic world, they didn't have this concern. And therefore, in the Sephardic world, this was never an issue. And people kept on going about their business. Now, for sociological reasons that we can't get into right now, some Sephardim adopted the practices of the Ashkenazim. So it's not clear that every Sephardi eats rice on Pesach. Some do, and some don't. And some don't. Plenty do, but it's not a clear thing. There has been a movement over the years in Israel to try to eradicate this kitniot thing. I mean, we don't need it anymore. We don't have a concern about mixing things up. We don't want to eat potatoes the whole Pesach, so there are some rabbis, a few vanguard rabbis, who say let's forget about it. We're in Israel. It's time to get rid of kitniot. Over and over and over again, the majority, the bulk of the rabbis say, no, we don't do that. We hold on to our traditions. And therefore, if you're Ashkenaz, your tradition is going to be to not eat rice and not eat mustard and not eat seeds and not eat this and not eat that. However, because there is an inclination to be more machmir, to be more strict, so some people said, what about soy? What about quinoa? What about canola oil? What about newfangled things, right? Quinoa, they didn't have hundreds of years ago in Germany. So when the original takana was made, quinoa wasn't part of it. Soy wasn't part of it. Some rabbis say it doesn't make a difference. If it fits into the category of something that is a seed that looks like another seed that looks, that can get mixed up, we add it. And therefore, the most strict positions is to not eat soy, to not eat lecithin, which is some kind of emulsifier or some kind of product of a seed, to not eat syrups, corn syrups, and all those different types of things, to not eat quinoas and everything that you can possibly reduce to the seed-like substance. They say it's prohibited, and therefore they don't use it on Pesach. I do because I follow the position that says when hundreds of years ago the custom became law of kitniot, that's it. Whatever was there then was there then. And therefore, I don't eat corn, and I don't eat rice, and I don't eat mustard, but I do eat soy. I do eat chocolates that have lecithin in it, whatever that thing is. I do eat quinoa. So I'll use canola oil, which I think Rabbi Shidduch says not to. He likes to use a different oil. He's more strict. But I'm just saying that I don't think that there's a need to go beyond that. Now, in Israel, and if you get products from Israel, you will see many different products that says la'ochle kitniot bilvad, only for those who eat kitniot. Okay. Now, sometimes it's because there's rice in the ingredients. Sometimes there's corn in the ingredient or corn syrup. But other times it's because there's soy, and therefore I eat that. Or there's lecithin, I'll eat that. Or there's oils, I'll eat that as well. And therefore it opens up a little bit more of the products that I'm able to partake in on Pesach without being concerned that I'm violating these laws. Now, who does eat kitniot? We said Sfardim, and also people who are ill and elderly. They're in a different category. The person has, needs to eat that. There was one year where my daughter was not able to eat many things. We said she was able to eat rice, just like that. We had a special pot for her that she was going to eat rice, and that's what she had in Pesach. She couldn't digest anything else. So if that's your case, then I support it. If, however, you just want it because it tastes better, then that's not an acceptable reason. Now, because I am from Hasidic stock, then my grandfather, both of my grandfathers, not only did they not eat kitniot, but they didn't eat something called gebruchts. Gebruchts is a Polish German word. It means crushed. What is the problem with crushed? It's basically matzah meal. Okay, what's matzah meal? Matzah meal, they realize you can't bake a cake with flour, obviously, because flour and water will get you chametz. But you can bake a cake with flour made from matzah. Because once it's made from matzah, if you crush it down to its smallest sense, it makes it into a flour. You can bake with that, and then you can have cakes, and you can have pancakes, and you can have rolls, and you can have all the things in the world you can make from. Sorry?
Mit? Jól van, édesem.
Eat all the things in the world you can have from this matzah meal. Okay, I mean, nowadays, there are other types of flours anyway, as we've discussed. What's a good flour? Almond flour. My wife makes cookies from almond flour. It's perfectly legitimate. I just made her the other day. Almond flour and some sugar and some egg. Delicious cookies. Okay, so obviously the ultra strict people would say, you can't have almond flour. It's more crushed things, and it's like kitniot. No, you can certainly have almond flour. That's not a problem. There is a problem. Some people are strict about nuts. it's a whole other story. I don't know why. It's not part of our discussion. Obviously, peanuts is different. Peanuts are, I guess, part of kitniot, but other type of nuts, like cashews, are permitted. And some people don't eat it because they don't eat anything, or macadamia nuts. They are, there's, it's permitted, but peanuts is the classic kitniot, right? Peanuts are part of this kitniot thing, and therefore some people are a little lenient that peanuts is they'll not eat, but peanut oil they might eat, which is the big bamba discussion. But that's not our discussion now. Getting back to, and I'll say this right now, that because I'm cheap, in 7 minutes the class is going to end, but I'm going to send you another link and we'll start it up again, okay? Because obviously we don't have time. We're running out of time. I'll just send it to questions. You see, I don't know if you, Gabrielle, and you, Dan, have my questions. Or you know what, maybe I'll put it in the chat, okay? I'll put it in the chat. You know what, I'll do it right now. Give me a second. Oh, I can't do it while we're in it, can I?
You're supposed to. I think you can.
I can add another class, schedule another class while I'm in this one?
No. You just have, you have to finish this one and then start all over again with another code, another password.
Right.
I think you need.
Right, but how do I send it to you guys?
That's a good question. Probably, yeah. Well, I got the information from Rob David, and I'm not
All right,
too
so I'll
sure.
send it to Rabbi David again, and I'll let him know
Exactly.
to. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I said, we'll go until in 5-6 minutes, and then you wait 2 minutes, and we'll get on again.
Good.
Hasidim don't eat matzah meal on Pesach. I want you to understand the severity of this law. Without matzah meal and all the kitniot, Pesach is meat and potatoes. Meat, fish, and potatoes. Not only that, but Hasidim also won't even put any liquid on matzah. Therefore, no matzah balls, no matzah with butter, no matzah with jam, no matzah in your soup. They're very, very strict. And there are hotels that are completely non-gebrux that they'll follow, and they'll use, of course, potato flour instead of matzah meal. When you make cakes with potato flour, it has a certain taste. Listen, with sugar, anything is possible, but nevertheless, it is a difficult holiday culinarily wise, and for kids when you are eating eggs, potatoes, cake, and that's it. When you are eating matzah meal, there is a host of different cereals because everything is from matzah meal, and there are all these different types of waffles and pancakes and everything you can make. So now you can make Pesach pasta, Pesach lasagna, Pesach cake, Pesach cereal from matzah meal. And you can make Pesach rolls and Pesach bagels. So you'll say, wait, but it seems like it's going to confuse people. It doesn't confuse people. Everybody knows that on Pesach there's a special, menu and a special ingredients, and it doesn't taste exactly the same. So everyone's still waiting for a piece of pizza after Pesach, even though they have Pesach pizza. The Hasidim suffer. But sometimes, that's part of being a chassid, is that you suffer. I did the following. My wife is also, her parents are Chabad, and they also accepted upon themselves many years ago not to eat matzah meal and anything crushed flour, matzah. So my wife and I, made a decision. The suffering has to stop. Now, we are not going to stop because that's our tradition from our fathers, but our children, we gave them the green light. We allowed them to eat matzah meal, and we kind of stopped that tradition, which is not really a tradition. It's more of an extra chumrah that we didn't accept for our children, but we accepted it for ourselves. Okay. So this gets us to, okay, so now we have, some people are strict, by the way, they won't eat anyone's home on Pesach other than their own. Some people are strict that they won't eat in a hotel. I spent many, many years in a hotel. And I think that when normally I would say there's no reason to be extra strict, I would say on Pesach, it's probably a good idea to be strict. People aren't as strict, as careful as they should be. And the mashgiach, the person in charge, can't watch everything all the time. And therefore, when you would normally go to someone's house for a meal, here on Pesach, you'd have to ask a lot of questions and people would feel uncomfortable, but this is what you do when you have the strict rules of Pesach and Chametz. Okay? Now, this ends our discussion about what Chametz is and what you have to, be aware of and what you have to stay away from. And we will now start the discussion about koshering your house for Pesach, koshering your utensils and the like. And in doing that, I will send you a new link right now. Okay.